My guest today is Erin Joe, the Director of the Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Erin, welcome to the program.
Good to be here, Jason. Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting because I think it's been roughly a year and a half since I've caught up with the director of the CTIC, and there's so much changes in cybersecurity. So many things happen. I was just writing a story on credential stuffing, a new term I just learned the other day. So there's so much to talk to about goes on. So it's great to catch up. But I'm going to start maybe at the beginning. You've been in your role now as director of CTIC for just about over a year. Talking to me about that adjustment. I mean, there's some surprises that come when in this new role. What is some of those surprises, maybe even an aha moment?
Certainly, yes, I did come over from the FBI. I am an FBI agent who's detailed over to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence as the director. It has been an honor to serve in this last year, and I have learned so many things. I've learned things about the intelligence community and the way we function and work, as well as so many of those who play a role in cyber. A few aha moments. I would say, I think about those in a few ways. I've certainly gained a deeper appreciation in two areas. One, the need for and value of an independent entity like CTIC to integrate intelligence. And the second is the need for and value of preparedness. So on the first, I'll say, when we think about the government, each individual agency or department in government has their own set of collection and their own set of information that they have to integrate just within their own department and agency. So it really does take a focused effort to integrate to get the integrated intelligence picture across the intelligence community. And there's no one else that does that. CTIC has a very unique role and responsibility in that area. And I've seen the value of that time and time again. Another thing in that same vein is each of the department and agencies, as well as in the private sector, have net defenders, but they also have intel components. And sometimes it's really challenging to get those two connected at the speed of cyber. So you have things that are happening on the net defense side, and you have the intel components that are looking at intelligence, but CTIC has played a role in several circumstances in which we were able to help make those connections happen faster so that we could increase our response time. And a lot of that is a function of the fact that we are a joint duty agency. We have we have intelligence analysts and professionals from across the intelligence community who come and sit in our space and contribute on our teams. So the fact that they have reached back into their own agencies or bring a perspective and understanding from their own agencies can be very helpful when we want to connect parts and pieces of government and information. And then I want to go into a little bit about preparedness. Here we are in a COVID-19 pandemic situation. And now more than ever, we see the value of preparedness. And I think about this in a few ways. It demonstrates a level of commitment that's required to protect ourselves and each other as individuals and as countries and nations. It also brings to mind the far-reaching impact that we've seen from a single event. This is very similar to a cyber incident or the cyber world we live in. And I see plenty of application here. This pandemic has highlighted more than ever our interconnectedness and our interdependencies. And it also brings to the forefront of our minds the value of cybersecurity. So there's a lot of work being done for preparedness, and CTIC plays a role in that. But first, I want to at least acknowledge as a country how far we're coming. It's really exciting to see industry stepping up and making our devices and services more secure than ever. And I love this country, and I want every person to see their own individual contribution in cybersecurity. And we do see individuals learning so much more about ways to be safe in the cyberspace, including our young people who are interconnected all the time and have to employ ways to keep themselves safe online. But for CTIC, I'm proud to be leading right now in a time when we are aggressive in our training and exercise plan and preparedness. This year alone, we implemented 7 initiatives that we were for following up to make sure that we were going to be as prepared for a cyber incident and to respond as possible. Some of those initiatives were small, things like internal communications or improving our connectivity with the other federal cyber centers, but some were expansive on a national level. CTIC drafted the scenarios to be used in the national level exercise to tease out things in government that we want to improve and make sure that we can do well in a time of need.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. And there's good stuff. Let me back up and start with the value proposition that you kind of started with. This idea that bringing people together, this idea of understanding the threat intel picture across the entire either intelligence community or more broadly across the entire government. Have you seen in the last year this desire, this willingness, this I'll call it excitement for lack of a better word, of the other agencies coming to CTIC asking for more because the value they're seeing, that they understand the value better than ever?
We have in several ways. One is the integrated threat intelligence picture, and we work on that every day, and we provide that information daily. We have a daily product that goes to the intelligence community that's disseminated out as broadly as possible, and we get feedback from that every day. Some of our information ends up in the presidential daily brief. We feed that information to over 250 briefers across the intelligence community. That product is used by those briefers so that they can prepare briefings to their principals across government. That's one way that we reach the decision makers on a daily basis, but we also reach the broad spectrum of analysts who have to work in this space every single day through that product, and they use it almost like a daily read. Think of it as reading a daily newspaper. We put together the current intelligence threat information with some context around it so that people can read what's happening in the cyber world and have it be easily and readily digestible and found in one place. That gives us all a head start in the middle of something that's very hard and complex and could take a lot of time and energy to find. Another thing that we find is we are being looked to provide lessons learned throughout the community. This has been something that government continuously has to improve upon, is capturing those things we do well and looking for things that we want to document so we can improve upon those and make them better. So CTIC is in a position and has been turned to examine the way the intelligence community functions across in support of interagency operations. So we're not looking at the individual agencies, but we're saying, how did we do together? How do we share information across the board to support a particular whole of government effort or operation? And we've interviewed those who are closest to those operations. We've captured things that they're doing well, that they want to do more of, and maybe some areas where we need to improve in our intelligence flow and communications, as well as the type of intelligence that's needed and the speed with which it's needed. And we just published for the intelligence community, it's a classified product for the intelligence community, lessons learned on a particular operation. And we've already had 2 agencies reach out to us to let us know that it is of value and they want to look at it further to take additional action.
I want to go back to, so I want to clarify one thing because I think it's important. I think CTIC initially was thought of when it was developed several years ago as a government-wide place to share information about cyber, both classified level and on the unclassified level. Are you guys at CTIC still sharing across the entire government, or are you more focused on maybe the classified level for the IC and other agencies that whether or not they play in the IC but have a need for classified information? I think let's clarify who your customers are, if you will.
Yeah, our customer set is as broadly defined as possible. And one of the key roles and responsibilities that we have is to get information published at the lowest classification level possible so that it can be of use to the broadest set of customers possible. And so every day we're going through all the different forms of intelligence that we get, not only from the intelligence community, but more broadly as we have access to others who have cyber intelligence, who may not be in the intelligence community, but may be in government. We also look to private sector, and we also look at open source. There's a lot of information about cyber in open source that helps increase our situational awareness and provide context to maybe things that we know in other arenas, like the classified environment. So CTIC is one of those unique places where we put that information together, and we also have the benefit of looking at all those intelligence sources and finding the same intelligence at maybe a lower classification level so we can publish it at the lowest classification possible. Let me give you an example. Let's say that CIA or NSA collects something from a sensitive collection, and the way that they would publish it appropriately classifies it at a high level. But let's also say that someone else, perhaps industry, has some of the same information, and they were able to publish it in an unclassified manner. CTIC looking across, we can see, oh, here's something that can help round out this intelligence picture. I don't need to ask CIA or NSA to declassify it, which may or may not even be possible according to their own regulations based on how they've collected the information. But instead, I can piece together some of the additional information from an unclassified source, put it together in a threat picture, disseminate that, and make it readily available to others to disseminate further. So the general public will not see a CTIC product in all likelihood. Instead, FBI and DHS already have established mechanisms of information intelligence sharing. They have relationships. They have ways to disseminate information to state, federal, local, tribal, territorial, fusion centers, other partners, foreign partners. They have many, many relationships and sharing mechanisms already in place. Where we provide a service is providing the information that already exists out there and compiling it and publishing it in a way that allows for the broadest dissemination possible. I'll also share another example of where we add efficiency in this area to make information most readily accessible. And that is if an agency publishes information at a classified level, and we know that information is something that everybody's going to be interested in. Typically what would have happened is each individual agency across government would send a request to that originator or collector asking for the information to be downgraded so that they could use it and disseminate it further. And then that agency that held it would have to go through the process of declassifying it and send it back to each requester, sometimes multiple times. But with CTIC in place, we're able to make the request on behalf of the government, of the others in government. We're able to get the downgraded information, publish it, and disseminate it broadly so that then it can be consumed by those who have direct access to CTIC products, but also can be redistributed out as I've described before. So we are able to reach the broadest audience possible just through adding some efficiencies in government and by virtue of the fact that we sit on top of all those collections in different forms of intelligence.
That's a great explanation, because I think one thing that I want to make clear is that nobody thought that this is just for classified, because if a chief information security officer is listening or somebody in the information security field is listening going, oh, great, now I don't have access to it, but they do. And I'm sure they also get it from places they don't realize they're getting it from, maybe from the FBI or maybe from DHS, who's reshaping it, putting it in some sort of other decision-making document type thing. So that's all helpful.
That's right. And also for your listeners out there in the federal community or in any community where you publish intelligence, I will urge you to remember to publish at the lowest classification level possible, because we might be a consumer and others are consumers, and everybody can make that information go further, faster, if we get the information at the lowest classification level possible as soon as possible.
Yeah, so I've heard that over the years. People always want to overclassify things, and it's all about secure information sharing. Erin, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can continue our conversation. My guest today is Erin Joe, the Director of the Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. I'm Jason Miller, and you're listening to a special edition of Ask the CIO, sponsored by Looking Glass on Federal News Network.